Whew, this Valley after show is a lot. I mean, we're talking one episode here, and I recorded for an hour and 15 minutes, and I did not and I left things out, like nothing important, but there's just so much with this cast. This episode's mostly about Jesse and Michelle, and I will say that we learn a lot about their divorce and relationship. There is so much we don't know. Unfortunately for Michelle, Jesse, I think, is just better at playing the reality TV game because he is certainly not innocent. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Bravo Papers, a safe space for all us Bravo fans who love to analyze, deconstruct, and talk about our favorite Bravo shows ad nauseum. So join me, Bravo and Botox, and we'll catch up on all the Bravo news and read way too much into our favorite shows and Bravo celebrities. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bravo Papers, here for your Valley after show recap. And I saw this Valley after show recap on YouTube because I guess they show like some of it on YouTube. And it was quite a bit, I have to say, actually. So if you're looking to watch it, before you listen to this, but then the last, but I just the way that it was on there makes it seem like it's the whole thing. So I was watching and I'm like, oh, this is great. The whole thing is on YouTube. And when you watch it on bravotv.com, you have to watch it in all these little chopped up parts. And then there's like an ad in between each part. And I have to use a VPN and. But with this, I wasn't having to do that. So I was like, oh, that's good. But then, I could just, it was cut off not like cut off, but it ended. And then I went to bravotv.com and I could see that there were more parts. And my first thought when I finished the YouTube one was, oh, good. An after show, a Valley after show that isn't like, you know, 8 parts or 9 parts. Like they're all like 8 or 9 parts. And I'm like, yeah, I guess this episode was a little less heavy, like compared to the last couple. But no, it was still 8 parts and it's still like 4 pages of notes. Like it's crazy how much is is happening in these after show episodes, like compared to some other shows. Even like the Beverly Hills ones, I could pull a lot from those, but even with those ones, it was very like, we know them, I guess, like we know the characters and the people. We've watched most of them for like years and years. Whereas with this show, a lot of them are new and we're still getting to know them. So, and seeing different sides of them and all that. So I do think that the Valley after show is sort of more interesting in that sense because it is giving like a lot of history and details and things that we don't know, like specifically about Jesse and Michelle's marriage. We don't really we only watched it for the one season, and it seems like they were already kind of like, at least Michelle was checked out, and you could just kind of tell like nobody was surprised that it wasn't gonna make it. So, but there is quite a bit of backstory that we just don't have because we haven't been watching them a long time. Okay, so let's start with the Danny and the ass grab. Because again, even just on this topic, even last season, we were all like kind of deciding like which guys were like the bad guys and which were like the nice guys. And, we all kind of were like, well, Jason and Danny seem like good guys. And again, like this doesn't mean that like Danny is a terrible person necessarily, but it it is something that we just don't necessarily or didn't necessarily know about him, and it is a different side and it's not a good side. So yeah, and these are just the types of things that will unravel about this cast as time goes on, which is again part of kind of what makes this a good show. So Danny did grab the ass, he admits, and he regrets it. He says it was not a good night, he was blacked out. But he also says he apologized and he thought it was all behind him. And then he was surprised when it was brought up. He doesn't say on camera, but the implication to me was on camera, but he was surprised it was brought up by Jasmine and Melissa. So I guess in that scene, which really was like a cut scene, he was kind of like, oh, you're bringing this up for like a storyline, or like you're bringing this up to like embarrass me. Like he just, the way that he said it in this confessional to me, it didn't make me feel better about this. You know, like I was like, hopefully he says, you know, when you're like kind of like, hopefully he says all the right things and makes this better. And then if it seems like Jasmine and Melissa have forgiven him and like he's not drinking like this anymore, you know, it's hopefully like one of those situations where he can move forward with his friend group, and we don't all have to necessarily like hate him forever, especially because so many of us, including myself, really like Nia. And but I didn't really get that from this part of it. Like he seemed annoyed that Jasmine and Melissa were bringing it up on camera. And in one sense, okay, fine, I guess like anyone can be annoyed about anything that they've done wrong in their life being brought up in a public way. But you, at the end of the day, you have to be mad at yourself because you're the one who did it, you know? And I was thinking about like an example of this, which is actually Imrul, and the way that when Sierra confronted him about like all the girls he's been bringing home, granted that's already on camera. However, like you can get confronted by somebody on camera, like in like a group setting, like with other cast members or whatever. There is a way to handle it. And I think like that was an example of it. Like he was like, he realized in that moment that like he's bothering his roommates to a degree. And I think that he just took the criticism and was kind of like, okay, I won't bring people here anymore. Like I, you know, showed that he kind of like respected what his roommates have to say. And that's it. And it hasn't been a topic on the show since. Like there is a way to kind of play it. And I think whenever you go down the road of like just turning it around into like, well, I'm mad you brought it up on camera, it just makes you look worse. And I kind of think that's what Danny did here. And it makes you look like you don't actually care about what you did wrong. You just care about like yourself and getting embarrassed, which, by the way, you can care about both, but you have to understand that the perception from the public is going to be that you're only sorry you got caught. And as of now, that's kind of how it feels like from me watching this. So Jasmine says that he was all, as in Danny, he was all like, I can't believe you're doing this to me. See? And then when I heard Jasmine say that, I got even more pissed off at Danny. And she was like, basically her response was, to you, you're the one who grabbed my fiance's ass and you haven't even apologized to her yet. So I guess at this point, when Danny said that, Jasmine was like, you haven't even apologized to Melissa. Like, what the fuck? Like, you haven't given her like a full, you know, sincere apology to her face that she deserves considering how you acted. So when I heard Jasmine say that, like I was already feeling a little some type of way by the way that Danny told this story. But then when I heard Jasmine say that, I was like, okay, fuck Danny. Um, and then Brittany says, Danny's a good guy. He loves his wife. Here, I don't doubt that he loves his wife. Like this doesn't, I know there's a lot of, such an easy thing to say. Like a man who does this when he has some drinks doesn't love his wife. It's like the easiest argument to make. But, you know, I live in the real world. I don't think that this necessarily has to mean that. Could it also mean that? I guess, yeah. That people could not do things like this and they could not love their wife or husband. They're not necessarily mutually exclusive. It is not a good action to do, nor does nor is it a way of like being respectful and showing love in the way that you should. But Brittany says he's a good guy. He loves his wife, but he does get handsy when he drinks. So she told Nia. See, in the way Brittany said that too, I was kind of like, Okay, so he gets handsy when he drinks. So this is not a one-off. This is something that has happened. So that's not a good sign. Nia says she was happy Brittany told her. She was not like Brittany, I guess, was worried Nia was going to be mad at her, but Nia was like, I was not mad at all. And I guess Nia, when she relayed the story to Danny, she said Michelle instead of Melissa, like she got the names mixed up, which I don't know. I get their names mixed up. Like when I started typing these notes, I was getting the names mixed up. So I can't even like criticize that. But basically, she thought it was Michelle who had been made to feel uncomfortable. Oh my God, my kitten is like outside the door, like doing the most adorable little, like, because he wants to come in. He's normally in this room. Like we've let him out. He's gone in the whole house and he's like getting really comfortable. But this room, his original room, is still like his safe space. But I closed the door just to record for a little because the sound in this room is the best. And he wants back in, and I might have to do it. But then he's going to be stepping all over my keyboard. It's going to be a mess. Okay. Oh, I think he left. Okay. I'll keep going. We'll see what happens if he comes back. Okay. So the life with Bean. Anyways, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so she got the names mixed up, which I do believe. I just have to believe in this case. I don't see Nia as like a liar, and it does align with everybody else's story. So Nia got the names confused. She thought it was Michelle. So Danny legit like thought it was Michelle. So he was like ready to like apologize to Michelle. But then we go over to the confessional with Michelle, Janet, and Sheena, and Michelle confirms that this is true. And she's like, he must have been really fucking drunk because he fully believed that I was the one he was handsy with. However, he didn't call me to say sorry. And this is where I'm side eyeing Danny again. She says, he called Jesse. Like, why would you? And they're all like, and like Janet and Sheena, and like they're like, yeah, it was weird. And Janet's like, why would he call Jesse? Like, what, you guys aren't together anymore, first of all, and second of all, like you're not like, even if you were, you're not like Jesse's like property. Like he should be apologizing to you, which doesn't matter who the messenger is. That's correct. I understand the messenger's Janet, but she's right. Like, so that made me as well. Like, why are you calling Jesse? They're not even together. Like, even if they were together, I'd still think it was stupid and sexist, but they're not even together, which makes it even crazier. Like, I'm like, Danny, what planet are we living on? And you're not even calling the right person. That's not your fault, but you don't know that yet. So Michelle confirms all this. And then Jesse told Danny. So I guess Jesse was like all confused. And then he was like, listen, I don't even know what you're talking about, but also I know the event you're talking about. It was an event at Jax's bar, I guess. And he goes, Michelle wasn't even at that event. So you must be like confused with someone. So then they figured out who it was. And then once they figured out who it was, then Danny called Jasmine to apologize. But Jasmine said by then it had been like 2 weeks and he wasn't really like saying sorry to Melissa. But then she found out about the Michelle mix up. So I guess she realized why it took so long. But either way, he still had not apologized directly to Melissa. So, and listen, I get like, I can understand if you don't know Melissa that well, you're not that close with her. Maybe it feels more comfortable to say something to Jasmine. But if I was him, like the right thing to do is to call Jasmine and be like, is Melissa there? Can I talk to her for a sec? Or like, can you give me her number? Is there a time we can meet up? But he didn't do any of that. So I don't know. It sounds like this was just not handled well at all by Danny. So Danny said that, when they did sit him down, and again, I'm not clear on who initiated the sit down, but when they did, I'm assuming it was Melissa and Jasmine, because yeah, he was like, why are you doing this to me on camera? Even though Jasmine didn't say on camera, but he'd said, I took the opportunity to say sorry to Melissa. So yeah, you were given the opportunity. You should have been taking more initiative. but he says he took full responsibility for what he did. He says, and then this part, I don't know if I believe this. I don't know. This sounds a little PR to me. He says, then him and Nia went to counseling separately and also together. Really? I mean, maybe they did if he has a history of this. Like, maybe this is like a legit thing. Like, maybe Nia was like, why do you get blackout every time you have the opportunity to like go out and party? And why does the blackoutness bring this like gropey guy out? So, okay, fine. Maybe they did. Like, I was kind of just feeling like it sounded like a very PR answer for like one incident, but I guess it is kind of clear that this is an ongoing thing. The other thing that made it kind of suspect is that he like made a point to to say to the producers in this interview, like, separately and together we did therapy, because a lot of people, like that sometimes is like a little thing people pick at when they hear about like, oh, a couple went to therapy. Yeah, but did you go on your own as well? Like, people will like really like try to question the authenticity. So I was kind of like, did he have this answer like ready, knowing? It's also hard for me to believe that just as a parent, it's hard for me to believe that somebody with under three has time for that. I know that sounds so cynical, but I just know as like a mom with one kid that like it can be hard to find time to like just do, the things like find a time to go to the dentist or to like I can just I get it. If you make it a priority, I guess they have Zoom now. I can just see it being really hard. I'm just saying. But I hope that they did for Nia's sake, because she deserves the best. The producer asks basically if this has happened before, and Danny says yes. So, he's drank too much and behaved inappropriately. So, not good, Danny. So then we talk about Michelle, the escort. Michelle's not an escort. That was just, that rumor. And Schwartz says the number is way too low, 1,500 a night. Thank you, Schwartz. I agree. The number is too low. Zach and Jasmine in their confessional also say this. I think a lot of us are on the same page. A billionaire, the number is way too low. Okay. Jesse says he doubles down. He says he heard this rumor and he says, I don't know if it's true, but I did hear it. This is not a good look for you, Jesse. Like, do you really want to die on this hill? Even if she is doing this, just pretend it came out that it was a fact. It still makes you look like you're slut shaming. It makes it look like you were bringing it up, like you're bringing it up because you see it as something shameful to be embarrassed of. Like, it's like there's no win here. So I don't even know why he's like going. Like, to me, this is a like apologize profusely and call it a day. Like, there's no but here. So Kristen, Brittany, etc. basically say it's definitely not true. Jasmine and Zach are like, it's definitely not true, and it's also so stupid. Everyone seems to think it's really stupid. Okay, Kristen included. Michelle says she's worked really hard in real estate. This diminishes her work and career. Yeah, I see what she's saying. Like, she feels like, this is like tarnishing her reputation. Jesse says he regrets sending the message. He says that as soon as he sent it, he regretted it. He says he wishes that he had unsent it, but he also says there is some context. Okay, so if you regretted it as soon as you sent it, then you could have unsent it. Just saying. Just saying. But so you didn't regret it like that, like long enough that it was seen by people, right? Like it was too late, clearly. But then he says that Michelle had done a Q&A with a bunch of people, and they sent him a screenshot of Michelle responding to a question about Jesse. And I was like bracing myself for like, oh, what did she say? Like, I was bracing myself like, oh, she probably like threw some like really, some like really good shade at him or said something that was like really like savage. And he's going to be like, so he like was like so pissed off that he grabbed his phone and went to his boys group chat and was like, Michelle's a hooker. Like that was what I was expecting. But then when he says what she said, it's so vanilla. Like I was like, Jesse, this is not like, you're not helping your case. Like you got that mad about like, okay, this is what it is. So he said that somebody asked Michelle about something, some rumor or something about Jesse, and her response was, "I don't care, he's not my problem anymore." That's what he was mad about. I listen, I understand there is like a little bit of like shade in the sense that she's implying that he's a problem, but this is not like, I'm sorry, Jesse, this is nothing. And this is nothing compared to like saying to saying that a woman who is not a sex worker saying that she is. Like this, it's just not the same. I'm sorry. So, and he was like, she did that interview and I got more messages from family, friends, my mom, like all these people. Why is she disparaging you when you have a child together and da da da? Because they're getting divorced, everyone. Why are they? They're getting divorced on reality TV. Like people need to like wake up to the real world. And again, like just because your mom texted you and your mom is offended by this, it's your mom, Jesse. She's like, of course she's going to be like offended by everything Michelle says because she's on your side. Because guess what? She's your mom. And of course, your family and friends, they're going to have an issue with anything that can be interpreted as negative from Michelle. And same as her family about you. Like, I just don't think this comment from Michelle was that. And I don't always agree with Michelle. Like, I didn't agree with her about like kicking Jesse off this trip or whatever. But like, this is like so stupid. He should have just let this slide. That's it. Okay. So Jesse says he did regret sending it though. And then he says, any man or woman, no matter how much growth they have, has their moments of weakness and fucks up. So you've had a lot of growth, is what you're implying. I don't know if you have. I enjoy watching Jesse and Michelle on the show. That being said, I think Michelle's an asshole. And I think Jesse is a toxic asshole. And I think Jesse is worse than Michelle. I do. But I think I think the reason he's getting away with more is in the mind of the audience, from what I can see on social media and things, is because he's more entertaining on camera. Honestly, like there's could be some misogyny there too. Of course, there always is. But there is something to be said for somebody being more entertaining to watch. Now that being said, Michelle's just very monotone. She's very like her personality is like plain, unbuttered bread. Like it's just very flat. And he's got a little bit of a better like screen personality. And I do think that is working for him. But, here's the thing. It only takes time. You know what I mean? He got a lot of hate last season. He got a ton of hate. And I think people were kind of ready this season to like, he was like the asshole that everybody hated right off the bat, the first episode, myself included. And I think this season people were ready to like give him a little bit of a rigid. There's nothing the audience loves more than like, let's change our minds. And the next season, like Bravo fans are very fickle. I promise you, next season or by the end of this season, everyone will hate Jesse again. Like it'll be an up and down. And I think Michelle will have her moment in the sun. Like I really think that. And again, I think it's very up and down partly because we don't know them yet. Like with Jax and Brittany and Kristen, it's easier to make a decision, like a more like hard and fast decision because we've watched them for like a decade. So Jesse says he regretted it. Everyone has their moments and fucks up. I don't think he's changed that much. I don't really believe this whole like I'm a new person. Da da da. I think he's become smarter in like a PR way. I think he's become smarter at reality television. I think the smartest, most genius thing anyone on this cast could have done, he did, which was get himself close to Luke and Kristen Doty. that is a surefire success. Having Kristen on your side, even if you're still wrong, people are gonna give you a little bit more brownie points, right? Because Kristen's like Kristen. She's crazy and, kind of an asshole, but she's like our asshole. And we've watched her a long time. Again, it goes with it, right? So Brittany says, and I think this is true, that, Jesse is jealous of how happy Michelle is, and he didn't think that, the message was going to get out. I don't know about that. I do kind of think he thought the message was going to get out. I think he was maybe kind of hoping it would, because I think he was pissed off at Michelle. And I think I think he is jealous that Michelle has a new guy. She seems like really happy and in love. And it doesn't seem like he is. And listen, he doesn't seem like he wanted the divorce. And we will hear more about this later in this after show, but he did not initiate this divorce. So, I think he is acting out because he knows that maybe he fucked up a good thing by being a terrible husband. So the divorce. Michelle says anytime she gets a response from Jesse through her lawyers, she can't believe the things that he says. Like, it's always like arguing over like the tiniest little things and like just causing, a debate about something that it's like he's just trying to like instigate trouble. Jack says, Jax thinks he's like so smart. He keeps saying this line, only the lawyers win. In these cases, the lawyers are the only ones who win. Okay, thanks, Jax. We've never heard that before. Jesse says, well, luckily I'm representing myself. Okay, so I guess Jesse will win in one way. He says he fully admits it. I think this is the other reason that a lot of people are leaning towards Jesse's team this season is because sometimes he does this fake thing where he tries to pretend he's like grown and changed, but then other times he fully admits that he enjoys instigating and being an asshole, both on the show and the after show. Like right here, he goes, oh, I love when I get a little win over Michelle's lawyer. And he has this big grin on his face. He's like, it even like makes me feel like I should go back to practicing law. Like, see, he can't help but show his true self. You know what I mean? This is what I love about this cast. None of them can. Janet can't help herself. Jax will never be able to fool everybody at this point. But Janet can't help herself. I think Michelle can't help herself. Jesse can't. Like, none of them can help it. Even when they're really trying to put on a persona, they all let their true person slip, which is again why they're a good cast for reality TV. Michelle says her lawyer says, he's just doing this stuff to get her to spend more money, for sure. Even when, the lawyer will be like, just text him and ask him this like simple question or these questions, then you don't have to like pay every time I have to send an email. But then she says that she'll text him something about the divorce, but maybe something small, and he'll be like, have your lawyer email me. So he's obviously like, he's fucking around. Clearly, like he's trying to make it more difficult. So Jesse says they had a mediator at the start who fucked up royally and did not file his intent to divorce or something like that. It doesn't really matter to the story, but the point is that it slowed things way down. And he says that because of that, they would have been done already and that they did fire that mediator. Michelle, though, seems to say that it's more because of Jesse, like, not agreeing to things and being difficult with the lawyer and the emails. And, I believe her. She's got a lot of like examples. Michelle says she thinks Jesse doesn't want to be divorced because that means she can move on and get remarried faster. I'm sure that's part of it. I'm sure that's part of it because it's not just about Michelle too. It's also about Isabella. There must be a fear. And I think I would have this fear, but there must be a fear when you're getting divorced and the other person has a new person and they're really in love and happy and you're not. There must be a little bit of a fear of like, is the new dad going to replace me? Or is the new mom going to replace me? Like, even if you know in your heart that like, at the end of the day, like I'm the mom, I'm the dad. I think that insecurity, like I can't say I would be above that. Now, that being said, it doesn't excuse, Jesse slowing down the divorce proceedings unnecessarily, of course. So Michelle says, so yeah, but I do think Michelle's right about that. That could be another reason why all this is happening. So Britt says Jesse fights Michelle over everything. So she says, in that way, Jesse is worse than Jax because he doesn't fight over every little thing for the divorce, but Jesse does. But she says she seems to imply like just in that way, as in not in all the other ways, okay? In all the other ways, I've got the ultimate psychopath here, which I fully agree with her. Schwartz says his divorce was super easy. It was over in 1 hour. They had a meeting and they even fist bumped at the end, and it cost them $1,000 total. I mean, that just warmed my heart. Like, I hope that's true, but I can see it being true. I can see it being true because I see that they were just kind of like this. I think Katie just came to a realization that Schwartz was never going to give her what she needed. And I think that Schwartz was kind of okay with it as well. And I think they just had a friendship and still kind of do. So, like, I believe him in this case. And Jax is like sitting there like all jealous because Schwartz had such a smooth divorce. I'm like, that's because Schwartz is not like a serial killer. Like, Schwartz, he's got his own problems. He's definitely got some very toxic, bad qualities. And he definitely has a lot of, like, did not treat Katie well at all. And I think he got away with murder when he was in that relationship. But he's also like, it doesn't seem like he's the type who like would try to instigate anything or fight anything. I'm sure when Katie said she wanted a divorce, he wasn't like showing up at her backsliding doors uninvited, when she wasn't answering his texts. Right. And I'm sure he didn't throw a coffee table. Like, this is what Jax doesn't get. Like, everything that's been difficult in your divorce is because of you and nothing else. Okay. Okay, so where else was I? Jesse says that things were smooth at the start of the divorce, but he says when they started discussing splitting things up, it got really toxic. She was asking for furniture that he says was his from before they even started dating. And she wanted half the this is his example. She wanted half the silverware, but his ex had actually bought like a certain set for him. And when he mentioned that, she grabbed the silverware and threw it across the room into the kitchen or something like that, or across the kitchen. But he laughs. That's the crazy, like, while he's telling the story, he's like laughing. See, and I think that's Jesse. Like, I do think Jesse gets like some pleasure from like seeing Michelle activated. And I think he knows like the little things to say that are going to like throw her over the edge. Like, I bet you he fully calmly was like, my ex-girlfriend got me that. And she was like, he had probably already poked and poked for hours. And then she was like, fuck this silverware. Again, I'm not saying it's okay to throw silverware. It is not. But you got to watch him in this interview. He looks so pleased with himself. Like, he looks like a puppy who like did something right and is like, give me my treat now. So where was I? Jack says he doesn't want the stuff that him and Britt had together. He wants to just like start fresh and have all his own new stuff. And, he doesn't want to disrupt Cruz and Britt's life after I made them move out into a rental home, after I threw a coffee table and bar stools while my kid was in the next room and disrupted his routine, which is extremely important, especially to kids who have autism. But okay, Jax. Like, I will never get over that. Like, when you know your kid is in the process of getting diagnosed and is having these issues and you disrupted his life in that way by making him move, like, I will never recover. Like, I'll never forgive Jax for that. Ever. Like, he can go fuck himself. So Michelle says Jesse wants her to pay him back for half of their wedding. Like, oh my God, okay. And she said she didn't even want the wedding. Okay, I mean, that's kind of irrelevant, but either way, you shouldn't be asking. If you're getting divorced, you can't ask somebody for half the wedding money. You just can't, okay? If you both incurred debt, like a line of credit paying for the wedding, fine. Then maybe you both have to take on half that debt. But if you just paid for it at the time out of pocket, like, come on. So he wanted to get married in Napa. They did it. They had 55 people there. She's like, he talked me into it. Da da da. I don't know if all that is true. That could just be her like spicing up the story a little bit. But at the end of the day, it was a 3-day weekend trip to Napa. She said, it was like 7 grand or something or whatever it was. And, the total was not a lot, but he's just trying to make things difficult, basically. Yeah, he could also maybe need money because it seems like from, what they say later that there might be some financial issues. I don't know. So then we talk about Jax and his drug use. And Jax says, according to Brittany, he wasn't honest with the rehab center, but he says that he was honest. Okay, I'll be believing Brittany, period. Jax says going to rehab is what it took to get him to realize he was an addict. Okay. Again, this means nothing to me. Like, he might as well just be speaking gibberish. Like, anything Jax says is just like, I'm like, okay, whatever. And here's the thing, Jax being sober, it so changes nothing about all his personality disorders. So that's why I don't care. Like, it's like, okay, congrats, you're sober, good for you. But are you still a piece of shit? Also, yes. So it's like, okay, well, like, I don't care. Like, I can't get that excited about the serial killer who got sober. Like, he's still a serial killer. He's just maybe a sober one now. So I just can't get that excited about it. Not saying Jax is a serial killer. I'm just saying that that's just my analogy for the day. Schwartz says Jax did blow like he was, like other people have casual drinks. And then they're like, oh my God, blow is such a strong word. Yeah, but that's what you did. That's what you were doing for like 25 years or whatever you said. So let's just call a spade a spade. Britt says that she used to have to say Jax is partying too much because she said, like, at the end of the day, it's illegal. And again, like, I do see this because that's why I think on these shows, you get people like Craig talking about being sober from Adderall. It's not that often that you get someone admitting to illegal drug use because there is more of a stigma, to the kind of legal aspects of drug use, like street drugs, right? And I do think that people who are addicts, no matter what it is, I think they feel more shame almost when it's an illegal, like they feel more shame about admitting to an illegal thing because then it's like, well, I also am breaking the law. In addition to being an addict, I also have to admit on TV to the public that I'm like buying illegal drugs, that have ruined people's lives and whatever the case is. So, I do think that's why we get a lot of like quote unquote alcoholism, that not saying that alcohol isn't a problem for a lot of these people, but a lot of times it's that in partnership with something else or it's something else altogether. Like I think James Kennedy, it's, alcohol and Coke probably. I think, for Jax, it clearly is both of those kind of combined because he says like, going out drinking would lead to the Coke use as well. Like he couldn't do one without the other. I don't know about the Adderall thing with Craig, but I do think that it was a Coke thing. Like I think it's a much bigger, it's a very addictive drug and it's very common in many circles, but specifically Hollywood entertainment, reality TV. Like it like it's a thing. Not necessarily that every single person who tries it and uses it gets addictive, but some people do. So, okay, where was I? So she felt she couldn't say that for a long time because it was illegal and she was in a way protecting him, which yeah, I think she protected him big time. Danny says it is admirable. This part made me laugh because Danny's like, it is admirable that he admitted it. He's like, but now he's like, thank you, Danny, tell us the truth. He's like, but you just don't know with Jax. Like, and I was so glad Danny said this because he says it straight out. He goes, is he just admitting it because he's like playing a game trying to get ahead of something, or is it because he's playing victim to get forgiveness? Exactly. That's exactly what he's doing. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's not actually sober or hasn't made a change in the getting clean aspect of life, but Jax, both of those things can be true. Jax could get clean, but he will also use it to get pity, self-victimize, try to, you know, convince everyone that they should just forgive him because all of that was due to substance. Like, he'll use it and milk it till the cows come home. Okay. So where else was I? Danny says, he hopes he's admitting to this just because he needs to get clean and no other reason. So I feel like Danny just saying that shows that they all suspect this is part of Jax's manipulation. And of course, Kristen says it does mean something that he admitted it on the Hot Mic podcast to Alex Baskin, who she refers to as his boss. Yeah, but Kristen, this is the kind of job where admitting to being a coke addict is actually kind of good for your job. Like, maybe it doesn't, maybe not for Jax, because I feel like his violence towards Brittany is sort of like overriding anything else. But if he hadn't done that, like, just say we were talking about like someone else on the cast who like admitted they had an addiction problem, I think for the most part, Bravo would be like, okay, time for a storyline. You know what I mean? So, but she says, she watched the interview, watched his mannerisms to kind of, says she knows like his lies, like the mannerisms he does. And she watched and she did feel he was, at least honest about the addiction part slash sobriety part. So again, that I can't believe anything Jack says. Kristen's word is still not enough for me. She thinks he wants to get better, or he wanted to get better in that moment, but he didn't want to do the things that you have to do to get to the end result. Well, that's so Jax. He just wants he wants to skip all the levels and just get to the end. He doesn't actually want to do the work. Like, that's his own entitlement as well. He says just being sober is much better, wishes he did it a year ago. Okay, whatever. So then we get to Michelle and Jesse. These two, I'm sorry, they're kind of carrying the season. I'm just going to say it. Because the Brit, Jack's divorce and that whole thing, like, I'm not saying it isn't like compelling television, but it's so toxic, and it's also like, what was I going to say? It's pretty cut and dry. Like, it's pretty like, Brittany married a narcissist, borderline personality, something. Okay, whatever he is, whatever you want to diagnose him with, something. He's never going to change. They said at the rehab center, we can't cure his narcissism. And, she needs to get away with him, from him, period, the end. And Jax is never going to change. And that's really the situation. And that's it, And whereas Michelle and Jesse, we don't know them as well. And theirs has a little bit, like, maybe not that much more, but has a little bit more mystery to it and nuance. And we don't know, like I said earlier, all the history. So we're like slowly getting things. Whereas with Jax and Brittany, like, we kind of know, like, for the most part, So I think this divorce so far is carrying the beginning of the season. But Jesse says Michelle's narrative is to say he's bad with money and to use this to prove he's a bad person. But he says he doesn't think it's appropriate to discuss financial stuff. But if she wants to use that as ammunition, he's not going to comment on it. So that's kind of sounds like it's true. Because I feel like if you're like, well, I just think it's inappropriate to talk about financial stuff, well, that probably means there is financial problems. Because if there wasn't, you know what I mean? And it also kind of sounds like the person who doesn't want to talk about it, it just sounds like they're probably guilty of something in this case. It seems like he just wanted to move to the next topic. You know what I mean? Michelle says her and him did very well in business together. They would do like $20 million deals, $60 million deals in real estate. They did at one point have millions of dollars. She said when she got pregnant, she couldn't work as much and he didn't like pick up the slack and he even stopped working for a while. However, he kept spending the same way as when they were working, and if not spending more. And she says he likes to spend, so the money basically ran dry. So Jesse's response is a little weird. And like when he said that, I was like, this doesn't really help your argument, just even just from a logic standpoint. So he says they were 50-50 business partners. They both had full access to all accounts. So if there was an issue with spending, Michelle is at fault as well. Yeah, no, not really. Because if you're the one doing the spending. Now, if he had said Michelle was also into spending, she was just as gung ho to go to Capri. She was just as excited about the $20,000 dinner that we had with just 4 people. Like, if he had said that, I could be like, okay, that could be true. Maybe she was also into like the lifestyle and stuff, but he doesn't say that. So this answer and the vagueness here was very strange to me. And to me, this made me think that what Michelle's saying is true. Now, what we saw of Jesse last season also shows us that, because I mean, right off the bat, he's like talking about how he likes everything a certain way. He likes expensive clothes, like his like whatever, and the whole like Capri thing. So clearly, like, he has expensive taste. He's kind of like a keeping up with the Joneses sort of guy. It doesn't surprise me even just when you look at him and how he dresses and all that. Michelle, Brittany says Jesse definitely has always had expensive taste. Michelle says he started buying $5,000 bottles of wine and he had no problem spending enormous amounts of money. And again, like, whether how much control she had over that, I don't know. Even if you share the accounts and you can see them all and she has access to everything, she doesn't have the power to cut him off from spending from those accounts if his name's on them as well. So there is that. You can't like control, you really can't control that. Like, you can talk to the person and try to get them to stop, but there's you literally just can't control that. So, I don't think them having full access, 50-50 access, makes her necessarily as culpable as him if he was the one who was like going out and being irresponsible with the money. Right? Now, okay, where was I? Michelle says that's part of the reason he loved Capri, because you go there's billionaires. And, he liked to feel like he had as much money as them, even though they never did. Like, they were at one point in a spot where they had millions, but they were never like on the billionaire level. But he just liked like being around that vibe so he could kind of like almost like pretend he did. But he wanted to like feel that, I guess. So she says that Jesse to this day will call and ask her for half of the health insurance money. So I guess they're both still paying their health insurance money. And he'll be like, I need you to send me your half. And he'll say, I need it right away because I don't have any money. But then she'll see him like, or like his friends or whatever on social, and they'll be at like a fancy dinner at Craig's. So she's just like, I don't know what's happening. Yeah, I mean, listen, he's not the first person on Bravo to do this. He's maybe, well, no, he's not the first, but he's maybe the first on like one of these type of shows, like a non-housewife show. Like we see it on Housewives all the time. Like, you get housewives who they either spend and live outside their means in order to put on a persona for the show and for the audience, because they're like, oh, well, I'm on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, so I have to pretend I'm like richer than I am, like how Dorit did and whatever. And often, and some of those people do it specifically because they have started on the show, which is, I think Dorit and PK were doing that before the show, but maybe amped it up because of the show. But, an example that comes to my mind right now is Britt Edie, who's joined Real Housewives of Atlanta. She's very much playing up, how much money she has for the cameras. And I don't know if she would be doing that if she wasn't on this show now. So Jesse, it's an interesting case because he's kind of like, he was already like this. So he was one of those ones who always cared about that sort of like image and like, you know, the keeping up with the Joneses thing, as they say. And then, probably coming on to that first season of The Valley was like he started doing it times 10, which we did see. He never was shutting up about Capri and like all that kind of stuff. And he got made fun of left, right, and center. And he learned from that because we've seen him tone it down this season. But it is interesting because when watching people on TV in these reality TV world, this is not the first time, but watching people living outside of their means, it's like you're almost just waiting for like the house of cards to crumble, and the crazy thing about these shows is that they provide a safety net to people like Jesse who are kind of living on the edge. And then in chasing that safety net, it's like a lot of these people are willing to, you know, cause more drama, do things that say and do things maybe they wouldn't normally say to secure their spot. Cause then well, I got to keep up this appearance even more now because I'm on the show. Like it's almost like a toxic, like a snowball effect. So Britt says, Jesse's racked up tons of debt and is trying to put that on Michelle, and says that one time Michelle just bought herself a bracelet and a bag and he was so mad, even though she's like not a shopper, never buys herself anything. Okay. Jesse says Michelle said he saw Michelle in an interview, or that she said amongst their friends, not an interview, no matter what I do, everyone loves Jesse. And Jesse is taking that statement, and this is what he says. He says, that means she's actively trying to get people to dislike me. So he's like, no matter what I do. So Jesse says that phrase implies that Michelle is deliberately trying to get people to see him as the bad guy. I mean, I can understand that interpretation. Here's the thing, he's not wrong about that, but also she maybe didn't necessarily say it like that, like I have a master evil plan to go after Jesse. She may have just been saying it. I'm like, no matter how good of a person I am or how much I show like my relationship with Aaron, what a good mom I am, people are always going to like Jesse more on this show because at the end of the day, like what I said before, he does have a more interesting kind of personality and he is more of a reality TV kind of, character. Like he's kind of a character. And she is quite stiff. And I don't think she can control that. I think that's who she is. Now, that being said, my advice for Michelle, in case you're listening, here's my advice. Not that you need it or want it, but just in case. Well, maybe you do need it. Is you got to let the person sink themselves, because the more she, as an ex-wife or whatever, estranged wife for now, the more she tries to plant seeds and to poke and to do what Jesse is saying she's doing. Because I do think he has a point. I do think she does. Like very first episode, she brings up how he spoils Isabella, waits till they're at the party, says it on camera. Then Aaron's getting involved in how he parents. Like, again, you're giving Jesse a win by bringing that up, because what did the audience all on Twitter say? They were like, why is Aaron commenting on the way Jesse parents? Like, who the fuck is he? And people were like, why is Michelle bringing this up? Like, she's just trying to take digs. And then they were at the Dave and Buster's and she said the thing about the makeup. Like, you didn't need to say that. Now, again, if she would naturally say that in real life, fine. But in real life, she wouldn't be hanging out with him in the first place. The only reason she's hanging around him is because they're on this fucking show. So it's already inauthentic. So I'm not even going to go down that road. But what I am going to say is the more she takes jabs at him that are not necessary, there are moments where it's necessary. There's moments where he's saying you sleep with a billionaire for $1,500 a night. You have every right to get upset, to retaliate, to tell him off. I fully support that. But yeah, but when you take like the jabs that like are not needed in the moment, or like be like trying to like plant seeds and stuff like that because you want the audience to hate him the way you do, you'll never win. You just won't. Because here's the thing, the audience doesn't like to be told who to like and who not to like, and who's the villain and who's not the villain. Like the audience likes to make their own decision about this kind of stuff as we watch the show. And whenever somebody is trying to produce or convince people to feel a certain way about the person that they don't like, it just makes everyone feel the opposite. Like it was exactly what Janet did last season. She was trying to convince the audience that we should all be on her side, that we should all be jumping back on the like crazy Kristen train and not disliking her. It's we should be disliking Kristen and all that stuff, and it just worked in the complete opposite way because we were like, we see what you're doing. Like you're planting seeds, you're saying crazy Kristen, you're doing all this. And so that's why I think Michelle needs to just, be on the show and just live and kind of like, Jesse will eventually, and you just have to have patience. Jesse will sink himself. You know what I mean? Um, and again, it's one of those things, even if he doesn't, or it takes a while, you can't control it either way. It's like it's a losing battle in a lot of ways. And she should just tell her truth as she is in an authentic way. You know, when you're filming a scene with him and the two of you are going to be like talking about Isabella, be honest about like what you want to say. But again, you don't have to bring up the like, hey, I heard the girl you're dating is like fucking the guy from Baywatch. Like, see, those are the type of things where the audience is going to be like, why are you bringing that up right now? Like, and what does that even matter? Like, who cares if the girl he's having sex with is sleeping with other people and she wants to tell people? That's his problem. So those are the types of things that she needs to just zip with those. I told you, I always say this, I should be an advisor to people on these shows. I swear I could do that job. I know it's not a job, but if it was a job, Bravo would hate having advisors they'd be like, no, no advisors. We want these people to be just as messy as possible. Okay. Boys chat. It's time to talk about the boys chat. So Jesse is still going with this whole mole thing. Jesse, we know you weren't. There's no sniffing out the mole. Like, get out of here with that. Kristen is like, I don't believe that for 1 second. See, even Kristen is like friends with Jesse right now, and she's like, don't waste my time with this bullshit. Everybody says Danny's the mole, but Zach is like, nope, it's not Danny. He's just not. Zach says Danny was only the mole in that case, but in general, no. Danny says Nia has his phone all the time. You know, she'll grab it to like take pictures, do whatever. So she could see things from the group chat. So, and then the girls will tell each other. So, like, it's not like it's like so private. Nia says they have each other's phone code. They even have face recognition on each other's phone. So if she's using it, it pops up. She sees things. Zach says there's so many people in it. Like there's just no way you can think it's private. And I mean, that's what well, okay. If you're a Patreon subscriber, when I was recapping this week's episode, I was saying that like to me, there was no reasonable expectation of privacy in this case. Kristen says Luke, had to tell her basically when he sees shit because basically, if she found out some other way, she'd be like pissed at Luke, and Luke doesn't want that, so he tells her. Okay. Danny was kicked out of the boys' chat after he revealed this information about what Jesse said. Apparently, it was Jax who kicked him out. Okay, Jax. And apparently Jesse and Jax kicked a bunch of people out that day. Okay. Maybe it's just time to retire this chat. It sounds, like, is it that important? Like, maybe just start from scratch? I don't know if you really need it. Or, you can just text individual people. Like, I mean, we all like group chats. I get it. But the fact that Jesse and Jax are like spearheading this whole, like, who are we kicking out? Like, I'm like, Jesse, you're losing me here, like, completely. Okay. Jack says it's a place for people to vent, etc. Which again, that's the only defense I will give this situation is that group chat is a place where you should be able to vent and talk shit about your exes. Like when I watched the episode before I'd like sit and thought about it, the first thing I was like, I'm sorry, I should be able to say whatever the fuck I want about my ex in a group chat without it getting back to people and being in public. That's like the beauty and the sanctity of a group chat. That's where you say that's where you talk the most shit. Everybody does it, and anyone who said they says they don't is a liar. However, once I heard more details about the chat, such as that there's like 30 some odd people in it, the wives see it, the girlfriends see it, then I was like, okay, well, now you've lost any expectation of privacy. Okay. If it was like 5 or 6 guys, they're best friends, they're super close, they go in, they vent about their ex wife, whatever, I would say you have a reasonable expectation of privacy. But this doesn't sound like that situation. So I'm sorry. Okay. Jesse says it used to be all single guys. Now it's mostly parenting memes. I just don't know if I believe that. Brittany says Jax has shown it to her in the past. Oh, so Jax is a mole too, then. And she says it's often like, complaining about their women or just about women in general. Apparently, Bo used to be on it, but Stassi made him leave. So, yeah, so that alone, I'm sure there was nothing good happening. The girlfriends and wives all see the chat. So, yeah, again, no expectation of privacy. And Jesse would talk about, not Jesse, sorry, Jax would talk about all the girls that he's fucking during his separation from Britt. Even when they were separated and he was like trying to beg for her back, and he was like, I'm not sleeping with anybody else, and da da da. And she was like, I can see you in the chat. Like Nia and like my girlfriends will see the chat and see what you're saying, and they're sending it to me. Like, I know you're lying, which you shouldn't even need to see the chat, Brittany. Okay. Just assume Jax is doing the worst of everything. So then we get to the affair. Michelle is like, what's the clue? I brought honey home. So what? Yeah, I have to disagree with her on this. Okay. I've taken her side pretty much this whole after show, but I'm going to have to disagree with her on this. This is like a little small kind of startup honey company. This is not like, you know, big honey, like some brand that's like we all know and have grown up with for like 100 years. So it is that you happen to buy. I'm just saying there, again, could it be a coincidence? Yes, that's not impossible. Do I think it's a coincidence after I saw that scene of, Aaron with his bugly eyes being like, try some honey, guys? No, I do think you've been fucking the honey guy for a while. And again, like, I don't think, like, they kind of give some context to their separation that makes me believe that she's been with Aaron even more so, actually. So all the girls except Kristen say, it's not that, except Kristen, that it's not that big of a deal. Everybody buys honey. Yeah, but do they buy this specific, like, startup, small farmer's market brand? What? I don't know. Kristen's like, I don't believe it. I think it's a clue. And I'm with Kristen. I think it's suspect, and I do trust Kristen's investigative skills. Okay. That's one thing I do trust. Michelle says she's not dumb. And if she was having an affair, she wouldn't leave the honey there. So you're saying there can be a connection between honey and an affair. Just saying. So Jesse says 2 weeks after they separated, Michelle told him she was seeing someone. And it was Aaron. So listen, I think there's very few people who don't believe that there was some kind of overlap. I think that's pretty clear there was an overlap. It's also pretty clear your marriage was terrible. And it sounds like Michelle was checked out long before. And as we're about to hear, she even tried to leave once before and had leased her own apartment. So, like, you're not going to get that much affair sympathy. Michelle says, and again, not saying cheating's okay. And is Jesse allowed to be salty about it? Absolutely, he is. But is it like the most groundbreaking, earth shattering news? I would say no. Like, this is not like when we found out like Sandoval and Raquel were having sex. It's not the same. So Michelle says she met Aaron at a coffee shop. She would go in sometimes with Isabella, but he was just a friend. Okay. See, that's the part that I'm a little bothered by. So it's okay. I don't know. I'll get back to that. I just hope it was not like a lot of confusion with Isabella, like her like seeing my mom and dad are still together, but then sometimes I'm with my mom when she hangs out with this other guy, and now like a year later, and like my mom's living with this, like that is a little, you know, weird. But again, I don't know if Isabella was just at the coffee shop like once, like I don't know the full context. So she says that after she split from Jesse, she ran into Aaron, who had come back from Japan and had just gotten back and told Michelle that he too was getting a divorce. Okay, Michelle. So you both left your people to be together. Just let's just call a spade a spade. Like, I'm sorry. Tale as old as time. Two people in miserable marriages who hate their spouse meet each other, fall in love, leave their spouses to be together, and then try to play it like, no, we just met right after we both happened to get divorced at the same time. Like, okay, we see what you're doing. And again, like tale as old as time. This happens all the time in the real world, which is why it's happening on this show. Okay, so I am not believing for 1 second that they both just happened to be getting the divorce at the same time. Like, this is suspect, Michelle, okay? Let's just call it what it is. Chris, and again, I still think Michelle would have left Jesse either way. I actually do. Based on what we hear about now later, I still think she was going to leave him either way. So maybe it's a moot point. I don't know about Aaron's situation. I can't speak on that. So Kristen says she didn't mean when she said she had a boyfriend for a year, Kristen meant she had a boyfriend a year before that. And she was not talking about Aaron. Okay. There's a lot of dating guys while you're married here. It's a lot. Listen, it's not right. At the end of the day, if you're done with someone, be done with them. Um, but again, it's hard for me to fully I can't feel infuriated about this because I just don't. And I just think that I need more information. Okay. So there's a text message that Kristen received from Michelle with Michelle asking about Aaron. And I guess Jesse or Luke maybe showed Jesse this, it sounds like, because Luke says Michelle asked about Aaron in 2022. There was a text, it had a winky face emoji and said, hey, what does your friend know about Aaron? Because I guess like Luke has a friend who knew Aaron. And Luke is like, basically, it looked like there was some kind of spark and that she was interested in him at that time. Well, like Michelle could be one of those girls. You know, there are those girls that can't be on their own. Like Michelle could be the girl who, like, she knows her husband sucks and that she needs to leave him. But she's the type who, like, in order to leave the marriage and leave a relationship, she needs to have the next one kind of lined up. Because, she could just be like insecure. She doesn't like to be on her own. She wants to make sure she's like got somebody locked down, etc. Like those people exist for both guys and girls. Like they always have to have the next person ready when in reality, it might be better for them to be single for a while. But Michelle just seems like she's probably that type because it seems like she was like, I'm leaving this marriage and I'm going to make sure I have a boyfriend ready when I do it. And again, that could just be a fear and insecurity of being alone. Okay, so the text message, Kristen says she understands. See, Kristen's got kind of the same perspective as me because Kristen says, I understand she was married. Technically, it's wrong. She also says, though, Michelle was leaving Jesse. Said she had a year before we saw them filming on the show, Michelle had gotten her own apartment and like had signed the lease. Like she was done. She was like, I'm out of this marriage. Michelle confirms that yes, she did try to leave the year before. She was really close with Kristen at that time and told her, she said Jesse begged her for one more chance and to give him basically 1 year to, do better, improve himself, whatever, which is probably what we saw season 1 of The Valley, him ayahuasca, going on a trip. But here's the thing is sometimes when you ask someone to change and all this kind of stuff, and then they start doing it, and then you realize, you know what? Even if they did do it, I'm still out because I have fallen out of love. And you can't control that. And I just think Michelle looked at him and was like, there's too much has happened and I'm never going to be over it. And we can never get back what we had. And that's it. And again, everyone has that right to realize that and walk away. But I guess you have a kid with someone, you've been with someone a while, and they beg you to give them 1 more year to improve, and you're like, okay, I'll try and do it. But she probably realized at some point, yeah, it's not working. That kind of sounds like that's pretty much what happened, right? So Michelle confirms, yeah, that this did happen. She says that, what does she say? She says that yes, her and Jesse were together, but they weren't really together. Like she says, we were like technically not divorced or separated, but we were pretty much done. Like I guess like when she went to like sign that lease, etc. Which to me is Michelle kind of planting the seed of like, I might admit later there was some overlap, but I'm also gonna fall back on the like technically we weren't together. Kristen says in her mind they were split up. Michelle had signed a lease. She had started divorce papers. So she just wanted, what made Michelle happy at the time. So she was like fully encouraging Michelle to like move on, like date this new guy. I don't know if it's Aaron or the guy from before Aaron. I'm assuming it is. I don't even know anymore. But yeah, again, like this kind of, if you think about it, all these stories make sense, right? And again, it is technically cheating in an affair if she had this long standing relationship with Aaron. If it was at the time where she was giving Jesse another chance, I can understand him being like butthurt about it. But I also think it's not as much of a like betrayal as like, an affair where like somebody hasn't said, I want to get divorced and moved out kind of thing, and it's also like, how much did they give it another chance because of the show? I don't know. Okay. So then when it comes to taking sides, Michelle says she would love to go on vacation with all her friends and not turn around and see her ex. See, this is where I get a little annoyed with Michelle though. Okay, so then quit the show. You can't have it both ways. You can't have all like the fame, the money, the possible like opportunities, etc. that come from being on the show, but then also be like whining and complaining. Now, well, maybe you can, I guess. I can't tell you how to feel. You can be annoyed that he's always there, but it is the show and you did choose to sign the contract and you knew very well what that meant. Okay. So we do have to own that. Jesse says he didn't witness the whole vote about kicking him off the trip, but he heard about it later. Britt said she took Michelle's side because she can't even imagine if she had to deal with Jax in that same kind of scenario. Which, yeah, that makes sense why Brittany, and again, to me, it always made sense that like right away, Brittany, Janet were like, yes, we're voting him out. Like they're like fully team Michelle. Like it just, like I wasn't surprised by that. Michelle says her ex is in her life fully. They still work in the same real estate office. They have a meeting once a week and he will come and sit right next to her. And she's like, it's so awkward. Yeah, it's like, again, it's like Jesse is very like playing psychological warfare. He really is. And that's crazy. Like he needs to stop. And what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh yeah, she doesn't want to move offices because she already feels like she's had to do all the like moving and, changing all the big changes and he hasn't. So she says she was maybe naive that her friends would all see her side with the trip and like vote her way. Okay, good. I'm glad you see that. You were naive. Correct. Period. Because that was like that was just crazy. Um, Kristen's like, listen, it's his trip. That's the start and end of it, right? And Jasmine and Zach say there's really no option in this case. They're like, they said even if this was like the Big Bear situation with Zach, they're like, Jesse is the type who would show up. Like he would just find a way to show up. And I was like, all right. Jesse said he would have, even if they did vote him out, he would have still come. There you go. He says, though, he would have gotten his own hotel. He would have brought Isabella and they would have gone to the beach and had a good time. So, that's him trying to be like, I'm father of the year, guys. Okay. So much from this cast. Do you see what I'm talking about? Hour and 15 minutes. And like, that was just the stuff I felt like needed to be shared on the after show to you. There was more, but all the other stuff was just like frivolous, like whatever, repetitive stuff that, isn't needed. Don't you worry. I would never leave anything juicy out. I would never do that to you. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. Check back on your feed. The Bravo Weekly News will be up by Tuesday morning, and you are now in the know for everything Valley. See you next time. Bye. Thanks for listening, everyone. Your support really means everything to me, and this show wouldn't be possible without you, the listeners. So please, if you enjoyed the podcast, leave a 5-star rating and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. For more, you can join my Patreon, patreon.com/Bravo and Botox. And for $5 a month, you'll get 4 extra podcast episodes a month. You'll also get early releases of Bravo Paper episodes and more. Please also subscribe to my YouTube channel at The Bravo Papers and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, at Bravo and Botox and at The Bravo Papers. If you'd like to buy me a coffee, you can at buymeacoffee.com/Bravo and Botox. Send your love through some much needed caffeine. And any guest that was on today's episode will be in the show notes, all their social media and contact information. So thank you so much, everyone. Keep overanalyzing Bravo.